And g'day there from down under. My name is Elsie Stern, a country Victorian gamer of Star Wars Armada, Legion, X-Wing, Dystopian, Battletech and many other games. To start off with, quick notice that I have had some issues with my previous video editors, so I've had to use a new system called Splice. Splice is a free service, however it will keep a watermark on all my videos going forward to advertise the fact that I'm using it. I can pay a premium to get rid of it, but at the moment it's okay. But now on to today's video. Today I'm starting another Star Wars Legion terrain piece. As you can see, it is called an auto shop. It is done by a company up in Bendigo, Victoria, Australia, by Miniature Scenery, and it comes in a nice small flat pack, all MDF wood, all been burnt, and it's pretty good that they have given the packaging just sliced it all the way down, gotten rid of a lot of material that one would usually use as wastes, sprues. As you can see, it is got a label on it of a garage. I'm actually not going to use it. I'm just going to remove that name and instead just concentrate on what I have. I need to obviously use some tools like a knife, some glue. So this is some Bondi strength glue, but I may also use a wood glue as well, depending on what I need. Other things that I will need, maybe a ruler. The forceps can also be handy, but meanwhile, this is what I'm going to be working on next. Hope you enjoy it. So the first part I need to do is remove all the wrapping and start looking at all the different parts. Obviously, there is no set of instructions that come with it, so I'm going to have to use the computer to actually look at the instructions while I am doing this via my iPad. So the first part I need to do is to start removing some of the parts. So it's this rather large top base for the roof section. And I'm just going to score down the edges just to try and at least remove as much of the joiners that is with the rest of the wooden sprue. And that way it will come off nice and cleanly. I'll also want to make sure that I get all the wall sections that I'm going to be doing at the same time. So sometimes it's a little bit of a, I guess, look and see and try and find where they are. Sometimes with these sprues that I use, they are a little bit hard to get off. So just by using that knife to break the seals, it's a little bit easier. And also it means that I can actually try and wedge them out without breaking them too much. At this stage, I just like to dry fit to make sure that I've got an idea where it's going to go, how it's going to fit in. And I've realized that I'm going to have to use this wood glue instead. I'm going to use this quite, I wouldn't say thickly, but also not thinly, because I like to use some of that excess glue to really smooth out the lines between the two joins. And also it's a good idea to seal it in some ways from both angles. So obviously you're doing both the side that is facing the most of it, so that side of it, but you're also going to need to have a little bit of glue on the other edges. So even just by rubbing your finger along like I'm doing here to get rid of the excess, and then using that excess to just wipe away or wipe on the joints can also just seal it up. The next stage we need to do is to do the full roof section. So this first part is a walkway around the outside of the roof, but this one is the main roof of where one would assume would be where the speeders or where trucks, all the mechanical side of things are residing. So again, smoothing it out. Now some people can use like a dish rag or a cotton bud or a piece of cloth just to remove that from the actual model. Even like I'm doing here, you can use like a little brush to remove it. But either way, it's quite handy to smooth it off. Next is the walls. But before I start working on some of the walls, I need to at least let it dry a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of time taking off some of these side panels, cleaning up the edges as best as I can, and of course working on getting as much of the parts out as possible while I'm waiting for that roof section to dry, because it's going to be quite important for that roof section to be as sturdy as possible while I'm trying to put things underneath it or gluing the walls, the edges, etc. You'll see that what I'm doing right now is like I'm checking the burrs or where those joins are on the book, and as you can see, that's the computer. As you can see, all the instructions do give details as to where they all fit. Some more so better than others, but in many ways, just by putting that little bit of glue, smoothing it off, following the directions as best as possible, and you never know, other people may have done videos like this for other pieces of terrain as well, will help. Now, personally, I do like these MDF type terrain pieces much more than the plastic. Although the plastic terrain pieces do have a lot of what you would call deformations on or delineation of the surfaces, so it's not flat. A lot of the MDF stuff is flat, but you can get away with doing things onto it later on with some extra bits of wood, or if you've got a lot of bits in your bit box, you can do all sorts of things. The plastic terrain pieces that you can find, or the resin terrain pieces, you will find have a lot more surface detail that you can actually accent. But for myself, I do prefer this wood as it's pretty sturdy. It's a lot more forgiving for warping. Obviously, seeing Australia is a pretty hot area, quite a lot of plastics do warp over time if you do not look after it, or if you do not do anything to protect the plastic, especially if it's left out in like a metal shed, which a lot of us here in Australia do have to leave their gaming equipment quite often in metal sheds or exposed to the sun in some form or another. either way, we're just taking off the last bits, and now we're just getting into focus. Now we're starting on the front. Now you can see that there is a front section. I think, yeah, it goes into the middle. There is a fairly large exposed area where the speeder can go in. And then there is like a door burnt into the wood. Both of these will come into handy later on. And as you can see, there's some nooks already cut into the wood that will allow you to like glue down the line and then put the actual piece of terrain in and fit it securely along that line. It's not bad. It's almost like doing a 3D jigsaw puzzle, that they all do fit pretty much 90% perfect. And a lot of people will suggest doing dry fittings, and I have found that that helps in some ways, but it isn't always necessary. So I need to stand it on its edge to just click it into position, making sure that all the glue goes in. Then I just want to maneuver it around a little bit so that that last section on the far side, or where the main office would be located, clicks in nicely. Then I want to just, like I've done in the previous steps, smooth out that glue so it all is nice and clean. So now I've got two walls up, and that means that it's balanced a little bit better. I've also done this section, which is a third section of the wall that goes into the little recess. It's got a bit of like a ladder that will go on later on, or rungs of a ladder. But at this stage I'm just gluing it in here, simply so that it's got a third balance point. So as you can see, I don't have anything on the back of the model of the auto shop, but I've got the front and now at least two supports on each side. Again, we're going to speed up our video just because all I'm doing right now is just touching up some of the side sections, making sure that they're all right, and then getting on to some more of the walls section, ensuring that the burrs have been removed. Just ensuring that when it comes time for the painting that I'll do later on, that they're not sort of going to be too much in the way. I want to do this front wall that I'm on to right now, both at the same time, so both sections. And that will allow me to essentially only have the back area of the wall to do yet, and also the garage door. I'm just using a little bit of a brush to spread out that glue a little bit, just so that it catches all of the exposed surface where it comes into contact with other parts of the model. It's quite easy at this point to just go straight ahead and put them into all the slots and just basically ensure that all your glue is placed along all the surface areas that are going to be in contact with other parts of the model. However, it will often be the case that you may want to just use the likes of an old brush to smear it, as there's going to be times, and this is quite often the case during summer periods, when that glue will get quite sticky quite quickly. I find it easier quite often to just work my way through the process and then also ensure that all that glue is then smeared off as best as possible. I also like to maneuver around the model so that I can see the various angles of where it is. I could take a brush and like paint all the glue on to the surfaces here, but I also know that if I do any of that painting or if I do any of that glue work, it may mean that all that glue becomes too much. And as you can see, that there are not a lot of overspillage of the glue, which is nice. Nothing is worse than having a model and there's like a overhang of glue in the middle in area. I'm going to leave this to dry for a little bit before I go on to the next phase. In the meantime, I'm just going to go through all the other parts, give them a bit of a clean, get them ready for gluing. There are some bits that I can probably glue on now while it's sitting on its edge, namely windows. Again, just using that brush to just wipe the surface and then putting them into position while the actual glue is quite tacky. If I put the glue on straight away, the actual piece of terrain, whether it be a window, whether it be a sill or anything else that is just being glued directly flat onto the surface of the model, it could potentially actually move while the actual glue is still soft. It may not get to that tacky that strength of the glue yet. So it's something to be aware of. It's also something to be aware of that while I'm doing the gluing, I'm holding and squeezing it ever so slightly in so it gets to a nice position. I want to make sure that both the inside looks good and also the outside. Makes sense from the perspective of the actual window frame. It's also the case that we're using the brush at this point because we don't want any of that excess glue to be able to be seen. Now, as I've said previously, the door I'm going to leave off because I'm planning on putting some magnets around it so that I can easily add or remove that door. I've got a bit of paneling that I need to do on this side still. And it's more of a case of just doing this last I guess, corner as well as the steps. I've found with these models that the steps are probably some of the hardest parts to do because they are so intricate. I have found that a number of people will do different methods for this. They'll either, like what I'm doing, they'll glue it into one side and then fit it to the other side. Other people will actually glue the entire side of the building together and then use the slots that you will see shortly to slide the actual steps through. Both systems are pretty good, I think, but both have their pros and cons. Obviously, this way of doing things, you will see shortly what the con is. The pro is more of a case of getting all that glue onto that starter point, that it isn't sort of smeared too much all the way along the model if you do it the other way. So what I'm doing right here is I'm trying to manipulate the actual steps to go into those slots. And as you can see, it's just that tad bit difficult trying to do it one-handed. So I'm actually shortly going to be putting my hand down and putting this video down to actually manipulate it a bit more to get it all into alignment. And it can get quite difficult doing this sort of models with just one hand. I think that's why so many people use GoPros. Now at this point in time, I still have a little bit of coverings to glue on the side and ensuring that it stays stuck. I just need to leave it a little bit, compress it, and then add the next section. I also have quite a lot of additional bits that I will need to work through once it's dry. So for example, right now I've got a water heater, 4 bits of wood glued together that creates the wood heater, and that will go onto the actual, which will go onto a blank section of the wall coming up soon. Other parts that come with this kit are some air conditioning units, some extra piping or for radiators. It's also the case that you can use other kits in this range and in other range to actually mix and match. So the distribution center, which I've already done, originally came with some actual security cameras that I have added instead to my Tory Arch, but I could have added to this model as well. In this way, no two models are the same. You can do a fair bit of customization. And it's also the case that if you don't want things to look a certain way, well, leave it out. Or potentially, say if this was going to be for more of a Games Workshop type model, then I can put in things like iconography from like tank kits or any of those products that are synonymous with the games that I would be looking to play. I just need to leave that to dry a little bit to set before I start moving on to another area of the model. And I want to get all the last remaining parts that has to go on to this auto shop. And I want to make sure that some of the areas are covered up. So as you can see, the water heater is going to be on the back. There are some vents that I can either alternatively put over the window or on the inside, or some slivers, or I guess you could call them some sliders that I'm going to actually put in. Now, I don't like the look of this doorway here. It is rather blank and doesn't look scientific, so I'm actually going to block it off with an extra spare bit of wood. This will give it the benefit of it being just like it's been bolted on, and I'll probably paint it as such that it has been bolted on in some form. Now, I'm just trying to check and figure out which type of window I'm going to use. I'm going to use these little tiny bits of wood that I'm going to have to glue up a little bit at a time, one on top of the other, to create a bit of a, I guess, like a sliding glass window or a air vent in many ways. And there, that looks pretty good. Skipping ahead, you can see that I've now done a bit of radiator, the aircon units, and it's all looking almost complete. I still have this power unit or generator to put on the side. And as you can see, I could choose either to stick it where it suggests on the manual, or I can also put it wherever I want to in many ways, or leave it blank if I wanted to. I just need to hold it into position until it sticks a bit better, and then I can just simply leave it, and it seems to be working fine. The other thing that I'm going to add is just some pipes that are on the back. These could be for a gas main, or for oxygen, or for even water. And I just need to glue the ends and just gently put it into position. I've also got some rungs to do for the actual side of the model in that area as well. So I want to take care that I've done what I need to. This is the reason why I'm using the likes of a tweezer to get it into the right position, and when that doesn't work, brute force. The key goes underneath, and that will hopefully hold it into position slightly outside of the the superstructure, so the piping looks straight as it's coming up from the ground. I just need to wiggle it a little bit to get it into position, and while all the glue is still wet, maybe adjust it so that I actually end up putting it in all as one unit. You can see on the side that when they have actually made this model, they've burnt in the likes of a brick on that backside, as well as all the top plating. That will all remain after it's been spray painted, which is a really good thing to actually start off the process of painting. But that will be part of my next video section. And of course there's small things like valves or some drilling that I'm going to have to do. I'm thinking of drilling into these corners, maybe one at the top of each side, or potentially even do 4 sections. This hopefully will hold on to it. But now you can see some to scale Legion models with it in different location. But that's it for me for now. So from Aussie Stern, I'd like to thank you. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I will catch you next time on the table when I start painting this lovely model. But for now, enjoy a few pictures of some of the different angles as well as the model itself, and I'll see you next time. Bye.